In raw data form, Jayden Daniels' performance in scrambles and sacks actually took a step backwards in week 2, but it's a sign that he is progressing as an NFL quarterback. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, everybody, to today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, David Harrison, credentialed member of the media covering the Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. Also find me covering the team this season and writing for WUSA9.com, the CBS outlet in Washington, D.C. I'm here with you every Monday through Friday. Thank you for coming through for today's episode. And to all the everydayers out there, I appreciate you coming through every single day. Locked On Commanders is your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to today's episode, in which we are going to talk about our film review. And in this film review, we studied the missing case of Terry McLaurin, or the case of the missing Terry McLaurin from the Washington Commanders production line. We looked at how the Washington Commanders attacked covering Malik Nabers in week 2 against the New York Giants. And we identified an area of Jayden Daniels' game where the raw numbers will tell you that he actually regressed. But the reason for those raw numbers looking like a regression is actually a sign of progression. We'll explain here in just a minute. If you want to get even more out of the Locked On Commanders podcast, you can sign up to become an insider today at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. From there, you can text me your comments and your questions, and I'll be texting you the same along with some inside information, live text from games, practices, and the like, and bonus content such as invitations to our insider-only Zoom conferences. It's a lot of fun, so make sure you head over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders today to become an insider. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel's customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. When you look at the decision-making and what Jayden Daniels passed up during week 2 against the New York Giants, in which he scrambled or he took sacks, and you grade them, it looks like Jayden Daniels actually regressed in his decision-making, in his willingness to scramble, take sacks, all that stuff. But in actuality, at least from the way that I interpret the data, it's a sign that he's progressing as an NFL quarterback. So, and we graded it fairly basic type of style. Essentially, there's 2 criteria that we graded. The first one was passing up open routes, and the routes have to be in his progression. So obviously you have to look at where his progression is, but if there's an open route in his progression that he should have hit and he passes on it, we give it a minus, right? So if everything is covered, we give him a plus because you don't want him forcing the ball into bad coverage or bad situations for his team, right? So that's how you get the first minus or the first plus. The second minus, the second plus is a results-based situation. This is where things get a little bit up to interpretation. For example, if Jayden Daniels passes up a passing route that would have given the team a 6-yard gain, and he runs the ball for a 5-yard gain, it's just straight up, it's a minus because the pass would have given you more yards. 2 minuses, 2 pluses equal 1. Now, we're not going to break down all of the week 1 sacks and scrambles because obviously we want to keep it more relevant to the most recent game. But basically 7 scrambles for 77 yards, 2 sacks for minus 23 yards. And essentially just in the scrambles alone, Jayden Daniels ends up finishing with a total scramble score of -2. The 2 sacks, one of them is on Jayden. He passes up several in breaking routes that are open. Sack number 2 is really on the offensive line more than anything. The pass rush gets in super quick. Not going to put anything on Jayden for that one. So you end up with -1 points from the sack total, which is -0.5 point per sack, and a total of -3 for week 1, which is -0.33 points per sack or scramble. So in week 2, and this is where you're going to really get a feel for this grading scheme, hopefully. Week 2, there's 9 total plays, 4 scrambles, 5 sacks. The 4 scrambles produce 33 yards. Here in week 2, you got 4 scrambles, and you finish with -0.5 total points, which is -0.13 points per scramble. And here's how we get there. Scramble number 1 comes on a 3rd and 10 play. He passes up Austin Eckler on a dump off, which would have gained 2 yards at the point of catch. And understand, these are all, when I say gain 2 yards, these are all gains at the point of catch, right? Now, yards after catch and all that stuff, I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like, well, that guy wouldn't have got there. That guy wouldn't have got there. Okay, I will tell you if there's like open grass, which there were on some of these plays, but if I say completion or a gain of 2 yards, it means that where the pass would have been completed is the 2-yard gain. He ends up running for 9. And yes, I do think that that run performance or run production would have been better than what would have happened if he passed it off to Austin Eckler. So you like the production, so you give him a plus there, but you don't like the fact that he passed up the receiver because coaches always want their quarterbacks being a passer first. So you're basically even after the first scramble, one negative, one positive. Scramble number 2 comes on a 3rd and 13. He passes up Zach Ertz 3 yards downfield with about 10 yards of green, which if you do the math, that's 13 yards in front of him. He does run for 14 yards, but he takes a really big hit. That's the play where he got the wind knocked out of him. So I'm giving him a minus for passing up the receiver. And yes, he gained maybe more yards or as many yards, got the first down. So you like that. But because of the big hit he had to take in the process, I'm actually going to just call that one even. So you're at negative 0.5 at this point in time. Scramble number 3 comes on a 1st and 15. There's nothing open, so he runs for 9 yards. That's a double positive. Not forcing the ball, that's a positive. Getting 9 yards when there's nothing downfield, that's a positive. Plus, he doesn't take a hit. So you like that. So now you're at positive 0.5. Scramble number 5, 2nd and 11. He passes up Zach Ertz on the left side stop route for a 5-yard gain, runs for 1 yard, and takes a hit. So that's double negatives. So you finish with negative 0.5, which is negative 0.13 per scramble. And if you compare that to week 1, negative 0.29 per scramble, you actually see Jayden Daniels got smarter, got better as a scrambling quarterback in week 2 than he did in week 1. As a quarterback getting sacked, however, sacked 5 times. First sack comes on a 2nd and 7. He passes up Terry McLaurin at the line of scrimmage. Pressure is quick, so there's no time for a second read, but he escapes, has a chance to throw it away or target De'Ami Brown in the scramble drill for a potential 6-yard gain downfield. Instead, he goes out of bounds, takes a 3-yard sack. That's a double negative. Sack number 2 comes on a 2nd and 9 play, passes up Zach Ertz on the slant. He had a quick look out to manipulate the defense, worked beautifully, came back into the sack, and just didn't throw it. He ends up getting sacked for a 5-yard loss. That's a double negative. Sack number 3 passes up Zach Ertz, who's open on a 5-yard stop route. Loss of 7. That's a double negative. Sack number 4. Initially, nobody is open, but Zach Ertz is on a chip delay. Chips his guy, runs out, leaks out, and he's got at least a 1-yard gain to the point of catch with 5 yards of green in front of him. Instead, it's a 1-yard loss on the sack, double negative. Sack number 5, 2nd and 8. Initially, nobody's open. He's scrambling. Terry McLaurin comes open in the back of the end zone for what should have been a touchdown. Daniels even gets ready to throw it, and then for some reason pulls it back down. Doesn't throw it away. Ends up getting brought down at the line of scrimmage. No loss, no gain, but it is a double negative. So sack total is -5, -1 per sack. Every single one of those sacks was a double negative for a total of -5.5, which gives you a total of -0.61 per sack per scramble. And it's a difference of -0.48 points from week 1 to week 2, which is a negative. It's -0.48, right? You obviously want growth there. Why is it a positive though, right? Why am I trying to sell this to you as a bill of goods as a positive? Because here's the thing. All of those increased sacks, right? The sacks is really what killed his score in this evaluation in week 2. The result of those, or the reason those sacks are resulted in, the reason we get those sacks is that Jayden Daniels is trying to stay alive longer as a passer, which is what his coaches want, which is what we want, which is what the fans want, which is what his receivers want. Stay alive longer as a passer, give your guys some opportunities. Now, he's not doing it all the time, and he's still passing up open routes that you want him to be able to hit, right? But when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, you got to take those signs of growth in stride. And this is basically a classic overcorrection. In Tampa, whereas those 5 sacks, he was running out of 3 or 4 of those sacks and getting positive yards. Here in the game against New York, he's trying to stand in the pocket longer. He's trying to keep the play alive longer, and he's trying to extend things. And it's resulting in him getting stuck in the backfield a little bit. Plus, the New York Giants did a really good job on a lot of those plays of understanding who was going to chase after Jayden when he got outside the pocket, who was going to stay in coverage, and make sure that they had everything kind of contained in there when he was trying to get out of the pocket. So a little bit of a combination of both. The Giants doing what they need to do on defense, and Jayden Daniels trying to be a more patient passer. The hope is in week 3, you see more throws while he's moving. Because again, there are opportunities while he's extending plays to get the ball downfield. So you hope to see more of those being taken advantage of, or more throwaways before he's getting out of bounds or being taken down for sacks. And obviously, the more positive throws will be the best avenue. But even if you see Jayden Daniels come through here and get sacked, say 3 times, and he's throwing the ball away 2 or 3 times instead of taking sacks those 2 or 3 times, again, you're not going to like the 3 sacks. You're not going to like the incompletions. And if we go back to the tape and say, there was an open guy over here, you're going to be like, man, we really want him to throw that open guy. But that would still be a sign of progress because he's not taking as many sacks. So again, sign of progression, even with the grade score being a regression from week 1 to week 2. Hopefully that all made sense. That's our first part of our film review. Next up, how the Washington Commanders covered rookie receiver Malik Nabers, because they're going to have to face him again later on in the season. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're going to do that thanks to our friends over at DoorDash. Football is finally back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. Football season means it's watch party season, but not every watch party takes every guest into account. So if you show up to your buddy's house, all they got is chips and dips, but you want some wings, then DoorDash can come to the rescue, and you don't have to miss a single second of the action to get it. On game day, I need 3 things. I need finger foods to keep my hands free and clean for typing and note-taking. I need water to stay hydrated. I need soda to stay energized. And usually on the way home or to the hotel, I like a little bit of something a little bit more substantial late at night. So I love having the ability to hit DoorDash, order it on my way, so it's waiting for me or arriving at the same time I do with DoorDash. I can hit that and sometimes even have it timed perfectly. Use the promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off, up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders is also brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we've got something a little different for you guys that's been going on all September long, and this is the final weekend. It runs up through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube or YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. So if you haven't taken advantage of that deal yet, drop $5 on this Commanders game if you so choose. Right now, the spread is at 7.5 points for the Cincinnati Bengals. Washington Commanders are currently 7.5-point underdogs in week 3 against the Bengals on Monday Night Football. However, that line opened at 8.5 points, which means there's been a good amount of people taking the Commanders with those 8.5 points. Now that line is down to 7.5 points. The over-under on the total score is 48.5. So any of that piques your interest, head over to FanDuel right now. Go to FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Continuing now with our episode of Locked On Commanders, our film review. The New York Giants in this week 2 matchup had a rookie wide receiver, Malik Nabers. He looked pretty good to start his career. And a lot of questions came into the game about how the Washington Commanders would attack that coverage. So Malik Nabers ran 30 routes on Sunday. By and large, I was actually a little bit surprised. They didn't really pay any special attention to Malik Nabers. So no benefit of the doubt given to the rookie for draft position, clout, none of that. I do think it led to some big play opportunities, but also some solid play opportunities for the Washington defenders. So, a little bit of kudos, I guess, to Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn saying, look, we know this kid's supposed to be really good. His name obviously carries a lot of weight and all that stuff, but we're not just going to shadow him or double cover him or bracket cover him all day long just because of his name. He's going to have to prove to us that he needs it. And honestly, going through the game, the Washington Bears never really dedicated additional resources to him other than what you would normally have in coverage. Anyway, I would say Benjamin St-Juste had the best day against Malik Nabers. I don't think it's going to be a big surprise. Benjamin St-Juste certainly, I think, had the best day of all the secondary players on Sunday. Was in press coverage at times against Malik Nabers, as was Noah Igbenogany, who helped come in and replace Emmanuel Forbes. Didn't have a bad day against Malik Nabers himself, though he was flagged for 1 DPI and should have gotten deeper on a cover 2, specifically that drop pass on 4th down. Malik Nabers was targeted on Noah Igbenogany, was in that short zone, probably should have got a little bit deeper. There's no other receiver threatening his zone. So you would like to see him get a little bit deeper, a little bit more out on that coverage. And, all things worked out well. So it's okay. You'll be able to learn from that on tape. Michael Davis was a straight up just liability out there on Sunday, which I think is why you saw him get replaced. I mean, Dan Quinn kind of commented that they just decided to go a different direction at one point at that cornerback position. I would anticipate Noah Igbenogany getting the start opposite Benjamin St-Juste this weekend, assuming that Emmanuel Forbes is unable to come back as quick enough anyway to play Monday night against the Bengals. But yeah, Michael Davis just did not look good in his first game action of the season. Look, maybe the Commanders can give him the benefit of the doubt, give him, the bonus practice and your normal 3 days of practice and throw him back out there. I can't say that I would do the same, but that's the coaching staff's decision, obviously not mine. So some specific plays that really stood out about Michael Davis's struggles here. A couple of plays. Well, first, just a couple of plays that stood out just in general about Malik Nabers. A couple of drag routes that the Giants really caught the Washington Commanders on. The first one came on a 3rd and 12 at the Washington 41. Nabers was in a reduced split left alignment on the numbers off the line of scrimmage. Benjamin St-Juste was across from him in soft coverage, so not completely off, but not impressed. At the snap, Nabers kind of hesitates off the line, allowing his tight end to set up a decoy/screen, which he then runs the drag underneath of, which of course is designed to force Benjamin St-Juste over the top, giving Malik Nabers a lane to run away from him. It works extra well because as Bobby Wagner is working around the tight end himself to try to cover the running back, follow the running back out of the backfield, he just straight up shoulder checks Benjamin St-Juste, which gives Malik Nabers even more space. Daniel Jones delivers an easy completion, and the tight end then turned into a lead blocker up the field, and Malik Nabers is down to the Washington 13 before Frankie Louvu just cleans him out. Second drag route came with 4:37 left in the fourth quarter. So that was in the first quarter. Now we're all the way down to the fourth quarter. 3rd and 9 from the New York Giants 47. Nabers, again, he's in a reduced split to the left side after motioning over from the right side. Doesn't hesitate the line, but kind of slowly approaches St-Juste, comes even, jab steps to the outside, knowing that Benjamin St-Juste want to keep that outside leverage. Ben bites, Nabers jukes back inside, gets away from his guy, runs under the screening tight end again. St-Juste has to go above him again. This time the back stays in, so Bobby Wagner is in the way, but the play is still enough to get Malik Nabers loose, and he gains 25 yards down to the Washington 27. There was another play for Benjamin St-Juste that was actually a really good one. 1st and 10 from the Washington 47. They take a deep shot to Nabers on a go route against St-Juste, who's in press coverage with single high cover safety help over the top. St-Juste defends against the outside release well enough with his feet. Doesn't get a punch, which, we've talked about that before with Forbes and St-Juste, not big punchers in press coverage, but stays with him, gets on his hip, stays in phase as they go down the field. Nabers actually has a really bad push off. I mean, you can see the arm get fully extended. You can see St-Juste's entire torso just kind of jerk back. It's one of those things that maybe if Malik had come down with the ball, the ref goes ahead and throws the flag. I wish it was one of those things where they just throw the flag anyway. Like, don't wait for it to impact the play. Understand that it impacted the player's ability to make a play, right? Like Benjamin St-Juste can't make the play on the ball because of that OPI. You throw the flag for DPI for the same thing. You throw a flag on DPI because it impacts the player's ability to make the catch. So I don't know. I just think they should throw that more often. But the ball hits the ground either way because when Malik pushes off, he actually also slows down his own momentum and then can't catch up to the play. A couple of plays that cost Michael Davis really significantly against Malik Nabers. 2 of them are hitch routes. The first one, 2nd and 10 from the Giants 31. Nabers is split wide on the right side. Davis is an off coverage. Nabers runs a 4-yard hitch route, kind of drifting in, more of a curl hitch. I don't know. It's not really a stop route. It's kind of just one of those things. Makes the catch 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, and Michael Davis whiffs on the tackle, just completely whiffs on the tackle. Nabers turns upfield and gains 13 yards in total. Second play, 1st and 10 on the Giants 44. Later on, Davis gets cooked on an inside release post route from off coverage, which, the whole point of off coverage is either to allow you to crash short routes or run deep with your guy. Wasn't able to do either. And Jones just overthrows it. If he doesn't overthrow, it's an easy 6 points for the Giants. The Giants eventually get a touchdown anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter in the end of the day. Third route, another hitch or curl or whatever you want to call it. 2nd and 10 from the Washington 34. Complete again to Nabers. Again, Davis is in off coverage. And again, the catch is made 4 or 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. Davis again misses the tackle. This time, Nabers turns upfield for a gain of 21 yards after catching it at 4 yards. Fourth play, 2nd and 1 to the Washington 4. Nabers beats Michael Davis off the line and press, but Daniel Jones late with the ball. What else is new? And throws it over both of their heads instead of throwing it for a touchdown. Fifth final play for Michael Davis on the day for week 2. He's actually not against Nabers. It is the Malik Nabers touchdown, but he's actually not lined up against Malik Nabers. 3rd and 1 from the Washington 4 with 12 seconds left in the first half. Nabers is part of a trips bunch left look that's given the Commanders defense so many problems. Jeremy Chin is supposed to take the inside route, but he bites on an in and out breaking route, leaving Malik Nabers, who's actually running the inside route, wide open. Meanwhile, Davis is matched up on the opposite side of the play with tight end Theo Johnson split wide. Davis is in soft coverage as Johnson enters his stem into the end zone. Davis basically grabs a hold of him and tries to fall backwards with him trying to draw a flag. It was kind of sad, to be honest with you. But beyond that, beyond Davis, there were still some communication issues that the secondary needs to clean up on tape. We talked about the trips look That gave them problems again. But also, there's a 2nd and 14 play from the Washington 32 with 3:37 left in the game. So this is game-winning drive time, crunch time, whatever you want to call it. The Giants come out 3-by-2 with Nabers and another receiver to the short side of the field. So 3-by-2, 3 receivers on one side, 2 receivers on the other side. The 2 receivers are on the short side of the field. The three receivers are on the left side, wide side of the field. And 4 Commanders defenders are with the 3 receivers, while 1 Commanders defender is with the 2 receivers. The 4 at the bottom of the screen look really confused. By the time Jeremy Chin realizes he's supposed to be on the other side of the field, the ball is being snapped. Malik Nabers, it's an easy 4 yards on the play. Doesn't seem massive, right? Turns a 2nd and 14 into a 3rd and 10. But when you're giving away 4 yards in a tie ball game in your own end of the field with the clock running, nearing the 2-minute warning, it's a big deal. You can't have those communication issues that deep into the game. What wasn't a big deal was Terry McLaurin. We're going to break that down a little bit more coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're going to do that thanks to our friends over at Game Time. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curated deals make it easier to find the best price on great seats. For example, my Game Time Picks right now feature tickets to see the Philadelphia Eagles visit the Washington Commanders in December for $137. So even this far out, already Game Time's like, hey, this is a great deal. You need to see it. Or I can see the Indiana Fever visiting the Washington Mystics on Thursday night for $47, among other deals available. And I get all-in pricing because I toggled that all-in pricing feature on in the app. So I get my total up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Game Time ticket coverage also provides the best coverage in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets or game tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Wrapping up today's film review episode here on the Locked On Commanders podcast. And in a typical week, Sunday football game and all that stuff, this episode will actually be kind of a two-parter. We'll go a little bit over the tape that we saw from the Washington Commanders, look at some explosive plays, kind of the key plays of the game. But we'll also start our look ahead to the next opponent, which in this case, this week would be the Cincinnati Bengals, and start diving into some Bengals tape and see if we can't sniff out any opportunities or anything to dread in that upcoming matchup. But because it's a Monday night game, we're actually going to do this film review, all Commanders. We got crossover Thursday with James Rapine of Locked On Bengals coming up on Thursday. And then on Friday, I'm going to drop a Bengals film review. And then we'll come back Sunday nights for Monday episode and do our final kind of keys to the game and predictions and all that kind of stuff. So that's how this longer week is going to kind of go. And then we'll have to condense the next week, right? Because then we have a Sunday game against the Arizona Cardinals right after that. So I'll have to condense that week. So we'll figure that out when the time comes, cross that bridge when we get there. But we've already talked about 5 plays from the past 2 games where Terry McLaurin could have been targeted. At least 2 of them were potential explosives and or scoring play opportunities. But why else isn't Terry McLaurin getting the production we expected him to have in the beginning of this season? So the predominant question is he simply not winning? That's really what a lot of my insiders asked me. I opened up the voting to my insiders, said, hey, I'm doing Jayden Daniels blitz/scramble packages. I'm doing Malik Nabers coverage, plan. And I need a third topic. What do you guys want to talk about in the film review? And actually, Brian Robinson's game review was actually leading the way for quite a while. And then the Terry McLaurin folks just came out of the woodworks, and Terry McLaurin ends up winning that vote. So is he not winning? No, he's certainly winning enough. Part of this is a little bit of what we've already talked about is you're playing with a rookie quarterback. And I know it's incredibly frustrating to see Terry McLaurin yet again going through another inexperienced quarterback, another quarterback that can't make all the reads, make them on time, deliver on time all the time, all that stuff. But that's just part of the process, man. Like, it's just something that he has to deal with. Is something that fans of him have to deal with. So I looked at all 39 routes that Terry McLaurin ran Sunday against the Giants, and not all 39 routes, officially counted because there's penalties and all that stuff. But I looked at all 39 of them anyway. If he ran downfield, I looked at it, and here on 5 of the plays that Terry McLaurin ran a route that he was not targeted or did not have a catch. It was a screen pass or a quick pass that was not targeted for him. So simply it's a predetermined screen or quick hit. 5 times, that's not Terry McLaurin. It's just going to happen. 11 times of the 39 times, his route was just covered. A lot of times, actually, some of the special treatment you might have expected the Washington Commanders to give Malik Nabers, and I think you should expect them to give Jamar Chase because, unlike Malik, Jamar Chase has proved himself to be a very legitimate threat. So I would be very surprised to see the Washington Commanders leave him singled up as much as they let Malik Nabers be singled up. But we'll see what happens on Monday night. But yeah, the New York Giants. I mean, there were times where they had kind of like this triangle. It's actually the second time it's come up. I was watching Jamar Chase tape against Kansas City Chiefs, and they were doing it. So maybe it's just something I haven't noticed as much. But yeah, they had this basically triangle defense around him. And they covered his routes. 11 of the 39 times he ran a route, his route was just simply covered. Another 10 times he just wasn't in the progression. Progression went to the opposite side of the field or just didn't make it over to Terry McLaurin. So right there, 21 of the 39 routes Terry McLaurin ran, he's either not in the progression or the Giants get paid to play defense and they defended his routes really well. So already just right there, 21 times, you're already just down to 18 more routes left. There were 3 times rather that he was in the progression and that Jayden either missed or just didn't make the throw. Those are the ones that are going to be frustrating, right? Especially with 2 of them being potential scoring opportunities in a game where you didn't score any touchdowns. That's very significant. Those are going to be the ones I think that the team, the coaching staff, and Jayden Daniels all come together and kind of harp on during the week and try to get better at. There's one where Jayden looked his way, but Terry actually just kind of thought he was running a decoy route or something. I don't know. He wasn't running hard, wasn't looking for the ball. Jayden did actually look his way, but it just didn't happen. So there's one of those routes which does not make Terry McLaurin a lazy receiver. There was one where the route was completed and caught, but it was called back for a penalty, so it doesn't register as an official stat. And then, of course, there are the 8 times that he was actually targeted. So that's the breakdown, guys. And there's not a single route that I watched where Terry McLaurin just straight up didn't win the route. Like again, when the route was covered, oftentimes it's because there was 2 dudes there, or it's just a guy like you got to go dialed up, guys in off coverage, and he took advantage of being in off coverage, unlike Michael Davis on that one post route, and got a head start on Terry running deep down the field. It happens. So I don't think there's anything wrong with Terry McLaurin specifically. I just think that it's a situation where one, maybe Cliff Kingsbury's got to do a better job of scheming him open. That could be a thing, right? Running guys through like some of the stuff the Giants did with, running drags and giving him little screen routes and all that stuff. Screening routes, I should say, not screen routes, because Terry's getting plenty of screens. Things like that. And then, there's the 2 or 3 times where Jayden Daniels sees Terry. Terry's available. Terry's there. Got to throw the ball. That's part of the progression of a rookie quarterback. And then look, if you have a problem, or if Terry has a problem with 10 times out of 39 routes just simply not being in the progression, that's a play design thing, man. That's something he's got to take up with Cliff Kingsbury. So, there's a lot of different reasons here, but, I think the predominant concern is Terry McLaurin just not running his routes hard, not getting separation, not doing this, not doing that. And the times where he's not getting separation is because, like, if there's 3 defenders around you, you can't separate from all 3 of those guys. But when he has the opportunity to get open, he's still getting open a pretty good amount of the time. So hang in there, Terry McLaurin fans. Hang in there, Terry. If you're watching, I hope you had a happy birthday, and hope that you get the production you want sooner rather than later. I appreciate all of you coming through for this episode. Next up is our crossover Thursday episode, so make sure you come back for that. And then Friday, we'll wrap up the week with some Bengals film review, see if I can tell you some things that I found that maybe the Washington Commanders can take advantage of. In the meantime, if you have questions or comments, all you got to do is text me. Become a Locked On Commanders insider. Join subtext.com/LockedOnCommanders and text me today. For your next listen, check out Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop for Tony Wiggins and some real NFL talk. In fact, this episode is dropping at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. So if you're watching or listening right as it drops at 9 a.m., in 3 hours' time, I will be on Locked On NFL Wednesday afternoon with Tony Wiggins. Either way, I'm going to be there. So even if you're listening or watching this later, you can catch that as well. So new Locked On NFL is twice a day. As always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day, everydayers. Thanks for coming through every day like you do. And until we speak again, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind, and I will see you next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.